All right, guys, give it up, give it up, give it up on your feet. This is Larry Namer. Come on, guys, stand up, stand up, stand up, stand up, stand up, stand up. Woo! You guys, this is an absolute honor. I cannot tell you how excited I was when Greg mentioned Larry Namer. He said, do you want to interview Larry Namer? I said, do one-legged ducks swim in circles? Yes, yes, I do want to interview Larry Namer. Larry is a global media mogul, and as someone who has been in the television industry, this is just an absolute honor and privilege to share this stage with you here today.
Is this on? Yeah, it's good. It's great to be here, and when Greg calls, I come. So it's fun to be at Secret Knock is one of my favorite events. I usually don't speak at many things, but this is one of the ones that I do. And it's not because I'm, elitist. It's because I'm very shy and I don't like to get up in front of people.
Well, how about we crack that shell? Does that sound good?
Sounds fun.
That's what I like to do with people. Okay. So let's just get started. For people in the audience today, I know your story personally, where you came from and where you've gone, where you started and where you are today. It's not quite the same story. So I would love for you to share how you grew up. Let's start with that. Tell me your story.
Sure. Grew up in Brooklyn, New York. Parents were immigrant. Their aspiration for me was to get a civil service job and get a pension and be secure for the rest of my life. And when I was 1 year old, my mother literally dropped me off a table onto my head. We think that's what kind of set me off in another direction, because there's nothing else that explains it. Grew up, first kid in the family ever to go to college, and it's not that I wanted to, it's my father told me I was going to do it. And I ended up trying to get a job as a teacher. City of New York cut the budget for teachers, and I was trying to figure out what you do with an economics degree, so I ended up getting a job I thought was going to be temporary, where I was an assistant underground splicer in Manhattan, which meant I worked in the sewers, putting the cables together with the rats and the cockroaches and all of that stuff. So literally, I'm one of those stories where I made it from under the ground up. I just got fascinated with cable technology and kind of grew up in that industry and part of the group and Time Incorporated then that we started HBO and Cinemax and really built Urban Cable. And I got recruited to come build a cable system in Los Angeles because I was one of the only people in the country who understood how you build underground cable systems. And that's what I did in Manhattan. And it was, Brooklyn kid comes to LA, you get fascinated with the media and entertainment world. I wanted to go to the parties and the premieres, and they said, no, you're in the utility business, we're not going to invite you. So I talked to the marketing people at studios and said, the only time I ever see a movie trailer is when I'm in the movies. I said, wouldn't you want me to see it when I'm at home to make me want to go to the movies? And they said, yeah, but there's no place on television to put it. Well, I said, wait a second. They're going to give me the best 2 minutes of a $50 million movie, and then they were only 50. And all I got to do is stand people up in front of green screens like MTV, used to be, video jocks. And they go, well, Madonna has a new video. And I said, well, that's great. I could find some people to go, and Schwarzenegger has a new movie. So literally, that's a friend and I, we weren't smart enough to know that you aren't supposed to wake up and start TV networks. And we just went ahead and did it, and we raised a little bit of money. The going rate at that point was $60 to $100 million to start a TV network, but nobody was going to give us that money. So we actually did find somebody willing to give us a little over $2 million. And we realized that was all we were going to get, so we figured we have to figure out how to make it work. So I called a friend teaching radio, television, film in University of Texas in Austin. Sent me 31 interns, and he started with 11 employees and 31 interns. As soon as it went on the air, everybody said, that's great. Why don't you tell us 3 years ago that's what you wanted to do? We would have given you the money. Well, we quickly grew, and we're in 142 countries now. And the big word, the buzzword everywhere is influencer. When you get to pop culture, there's no bigger influencer on pop culture in the world than he today.
Wow. You use the term influencer. I look at you as a visionary. I also look at you as a creator, Larry. So let's get into it. The questions that people probably want to know, but they won't necessarily ask. That's what I'm going to do today, okay?
Sure.
So in terms of, I mean, you've met so many celebrities. You have been around this industry for so long. Tell me about somebody who really stood out to you and not in a positive way. One celebrity that really stood out and not in a positive way.
Let me think. I got to think on that one a little. You know, it was very funny, and people find it hard to believe that because we reached out to celebrities, and you know, when Schwarzenegger has a new movie, he didn't need me to promote his movie, but when that studio was promoting Jaws 5, they really needed me badly. So we helped so many people, so nobody was ever there. Even today, nobody's nasty to me. They don't say yes because it's me, but at least they take my phone call. So we never needed anything from anybody, so we really had nobody that was bad to us.
That's a good thing.
You know, the closest we came to having people negative, you know, the first big breakthrough show that I did was a thing that was called Talk Soup. When we first came out with it, you know, my own crew would say to me, they go, Larry, you lost your mind. You want to do a TV show that makes fun of TV shows? And I was like, yeah, exactly. And we got some negative reactions from the people we were covering then. But nothing terrible. And they realized that even though we were making fun of Jerry Springer, we were driving audience to his show. So we got along well with everybody.
Was there ever anyone you met who was interviewing to be featured on one of your shows, one of your segments on your network that you passed over? You said, nah, I don't think they're going to be a big star. And they turned out to be a big star?
Yeah, sure. There was this kid named Seacrest that kept coming in. And, you know, after like the sixth time, I said, Ryan, you're a nice boy, but this is not for you. He probably is the biggest, most wealthy host of anything in the world. Paula Abdul, you know, Paula I knew for a long time. She was a choreographer for the Lakers. And she's going, Larry, I want to guest host. And I'm like, Paula, stick with choreography. And she said, no, I'm going to release an album. I'm going to sing. And I went, yeah, sure. Well, sure enough, you know, look what happened with Paula. We've been wrong a bunch of times, but luckily we were right a lot more. I mean, when you think of the people who started with Talk Soup, Greg Kinnear, and, you know, people like that, and Hal Sparks, and Aisha Taylor, and, you know, and then there was that big, goofy radio guy named Howard Stern, you know, which I met in an elevator in New York, and he was telling me that, you know, that, oh, I have this great radio show and I want to do TV. And I'm like, yeah, okay. Went to see the show and it just struck me. And I went back to my staff and, you know, kind of like with Talk Soup, I said, guys, I want to put cameras in this guy's radio studio. And they were like, Larry, we thought Talk Soup was kind of dumb. This is even dumber. Radio's been dead for 40 years. So I said, no, you guys don't get it. This is the real life KRP in Cincinnati. This is an ensemble comedy and stuff. And obviously Howard's done pretty well. But you know, a lot of really what made it was very pirate. Of course, we didn't have a lot of money. We had to do things you know, incredibly economically. And, you know, people credit us for, you know, all this red carpet coverage and stuff like that. The first time we ever covered an Academy Awards, I applied for press permits and they turned us down. They wouldn't get out of here, some little cable thing, go away. So literally, me and the producer of the show, we threw the cameras over the fence and we climbed over. And we did red carpet coverage and everybody loved it. You know, and then I said, I can't keep climbing over fences. I'm getting too old. So I found this woman, Joan Rivers, to kind of take that over.
I love how you say, oh, you know, Joan Rivers. That's amazing. Well, Larry, we call you a global media mogul. This is a philosophical question, by the way. What do you call yourself?
A global media mogul. You know, just, you know, still a pretty humble kid from Brooklyn who it doesn't really sink in. Sometimes it does, but it doesn't really sink in. I think my philosophy, and I think what maybe really popular was, I think Hollywood is funny shit, and don't try and make believe it's something it's not. And we treated it that way. We continue to treat it that way, and people appreciated it. I mean, when we first started, you'd get 10 seconds on Entertainment Tonight. They treat it like somebody was, curing cancer, and we just didn't want to go that route.
So I'm learning more and more about Larry as the days go by, and Larry has a hidden talent. No, he doesn't dance or sing. You like to cook.
Yeah, if I didn't do this other stuff for money, I'd be a chef in a restaurant somewhere. And that's kind of what got me through COVID. I just made up my mind every night at 6 o'clock. I go in the kitchen and just tune out the world and stuff. And, I think it's the process of chopping and cutting and preparing and stuff that, is my form of therapy.
What is your specialty?
I could actually cook Chinese food as good as any Chinese person on the planet.
I love it. Okay, so Chinese food better than any person on the planet. What are your other specialties? What else do you like to cook?
Well, since I was a kid, when I was 12 years old, I learned how to cook because my mother was the worst cook that ever lived. And, both my parents worked, so my choice was learn how to cook or eat peanut butter and jelly every night. And, it got a little tired after a while. So literally, since I'm a kid, I buy a cookbook a month and I study the cookbook. And I literally sometimes will cook it page by page until I get it all. I don't eat it all the time, although it looks like I might. But, I literally learned to cook, and I could cook almost anything at this point.
Wow. So let's talk about a book for a minute. If your life was a book, what is the name of the current chapter that you're in?
Larry Cooks the World. A lot of people ask me, they say, well, your story's so fascinating, why don't you, write your book? And I've always resisted it because, to me, my last chapter is still out there. I'm not done yet, and I don't want to write the last chapter. But somebody actually came to me and said, why don't we do your life as a cookbook? And that was kind of interesting because literally every 7 years I reinvent myself. I become just this different person. So it's to kind of do, the Brooklyn years, the cable years, the Manhattan years, the LA years, the E years. I've been in Russia. I've had a company in Russia for 11 years. I have a company in China now. I picked the hard stuff. I mean, my philosophy on what I do next is where could I go where I'm on equal footing as Rupert Murdoch and stuff. So I pick places like Russia and China where they don't like him. So.
I love it. You're super visible all over the internet. Google Larry Namer, by the way. So what is one thing that I do not know about you that I cannot find online? What is one thing about you that you can share with our audience today that's not currently online?
As a single guy in LA, I can't get a date for anything. It's since the, COVID has wreaked havoc, of course, but, even before, I hate to say this, but the whole MeToo movement has made it really hard to be a single guy in LA because, I get singled out and I've had a few bad experiences with it, so I've pretty much become a hermit.
Well, let's change this, huh? Secret knob, dreams happen. How many single ladies do we have in the house? Oh, look. So let's kind of segue into this for a minute. So what stands out for you? So if you're looking for a mate, Larry, what are you looking for in a mate?
Well, it's hard for me being in the media and entertainment business because everybody that ever wants to date me is an aspiring actress. And all they want to talk about is their next project and stuff like that. My interests are much, much deeper than that. I think there's so much stuff going on in the world that's so much more important than like what my next TV show is or next movie is and stuff like that. So it's really somebody who kind of finds Hollywood as funny as I do. So I could go to the Academy Awards, I could do that if I'm with somebody who we basically go to laugh at everybody else who's there.
So if we find your next girlfriend here in the room, then I get credit for that, right?
There you go.
Okay. Let's make this happen, ladies. Let's make this happen. Larry, describe yourself in one word for me.
Humble.
Humble.
I'll give you the quick story. Immigrant parents, and whenever I come up with silly ideas, my mother would smack me in the back of the head and go, "Shut up, you know Einstein." Unfortunately, my mom passed away a few years ago, but recently I was actually put on the board of the Einstein Foundation. So there, Mom,
You guys, this is such an incredible opportunity, and I just love this, Larry. So I want to talk a little bit more about your story. My favorite types of stories for everyone out there are the stories of people who start from not a lot, and they grow into something massive. This is what I love to interview people on, people who come from small beginnings, but yet they have this mindset of no matter what, I am going to be unstoppable. No matter what, I'm going to push and drive and grow. And you had that vision of what it is you were going to achieve. So what do you credit, Larry, as your success coming from where you were to where you are today?
Well, other than when my mother dropped me on my head, which is actually a true story. When I was a year old, my mother put me on the table to change my clothes, and the phone rang, and she went, "Wait there." Broken arm and the whole thing there. It's the challenge. What I look for today, people say, "What's your proudest moment?" And they expect me to say, well, certainly financially, it's the biggest. But when I look at it, I go, okay, I figured out that people around the world like Hollywood gossip. Not such a big deal. I don't think that was such an accomplishment. But I've had, I ran off to Russia. I did a TV show in Russia. They were like listening to like Tchaikovsky and reading, all this fancy stuff, and I introduced them to soap operas. So I had the #1 TV show in Russia for 10 years, 5 days a week, 10 years. And then when I got tired of Russia, or Russia got tired of me, I went to China, and I wrote a sitcom in Chinese about the contradictions of modern Chinese life, and it was nominated at the Asia TV Awards as the best comedy, and it was the only show that came from China that was nominated, which the irony is there that the funniest TV show in China is written by a New York Jew. It's the challenge of doing things that people think are unexpected or think that it's impossible. You can't go to China and write about a country that you didn't grow up in and people that you really didn't know and a language you don't speak. But somehow, thanks for dropping me, Mom.
Well, Larry, your humility is so beautiful. Can I get an applause for that? It's amazing. And on top of this, another thing I just want to spotlight as we wrap up, you are such a family man, and I love this. I had an opportunity to spend a little bit of time with Johnny, your son, who's here as well. And I admire you, not only for your business acumen, but for your heart and for your love of family.
Yeah, well, just quick on that, when Greg and I really got to know each other is when he was doing the movie Wishman about Frank Shankowitz, who did Make-A-Wish Foundation. My son, John, who's here, is actually a Wish kid. 15 years old, John was diagnosed with brain cancer, and he wasn't ready to check out, so he's here, and cancer-free, some 16 years later.
Yes.
Well, on that note, can I have a hug, Larry? I'm a huge fan. Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Dhomonique and Larry Namer.